we go. All right. So this case, we're here on a case that was continued from a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to go ahead and read through the hearing script, which basically will just cover the procedure for the hearing today. Then we'll jump right into the presentation of from the applicant. So this is the November 22nd, 2022 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the zoning hearing examiner for the city of Cincinnati. I'll be presiding over this hearing. The case number is ZH20220156. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. I'll then give anyone here from the public an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. If the applicant is represented by an attorney, the applicant's attorney may cross-examine any person who has testified at this hearing. I'll give our zoning administrator, Emily A. House, an opportunity to provide any testimony in addition to the staff report her office has produced, if she would like. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to an application, the applicant shall have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may refuse to consider hearsay testimony or documents. In the event of any technical difficulties or defects with the Zoom technology, I will do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's something that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay. The last thing I need to do here is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, really doing anything other than just strictly observing here today, then you are not an attorney, then the zoning code requires me to swear you in. So if you believe that is you, I'd like to do that all now collectively. So if you could take yourself off mute, I need everyone to answer out loud and to raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Okay. All right. I think I have everyone checked in from last week. So, Mr. Burke, if you'll recall with this, however you want to orient your presentation, it's up to you if you want to ask questions directly or just ask your witnesses to testify on their own. I'll let you take the lead on that, and the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
I appreciate that, Mr. Sturkey. Let me indicate that since we were all last together, I have had several additional conversations with the president of the Spring Grove Community Council, Mr. Robbins. I attended a meeting of the Spring Grove Village Council meeting last week, had a good and spirited exchange with them, but in general terms, I believe we have reached some agreements. And that is that the applicant, will agree to conditions, 2 conditions in particular, being, assuming these meet with your favor and you're approving this application, the conditions would be that the equipment, sanitation equipment that is leased from the site and used off-site would have to be emptied at appropriate facilities before it is brought back to the site. That condition is agreeable to us. And similarly, it is agreeable to us to require the applicant to make the fence along Spring Grove Avenue opaque before the use of the site begins. That condition is also agreeable to us. We're going to put on 3 brief witnesses, and I will walk them through their testimony briefly.
Thank you for the summation of that. I wanted to ask one question. I'm going to go a little out of order here to our zoning administrator. I don't believe there's any restrictions for a site like this on fence opacity, but can you correct me on that if I'm wrong?
Fence opacity is only permitted to be 50% opaque in a front yard. But if it was a condition of approval, we would consider that overridden. And so we would ask that if you want 100% opaque fence, that be explicitly stated in the conditions.
Thanks, Emily.
And to be clear, what we would anticipate doing is putting the metal pieces in the existing fence that's on Spring Grove so that the fence is made opaque.
Put metal pieces, you said?
The little strips that go.
Slats that go into the.
Yes.
the
Yeah.
metal. Okay, gotcha.
I said metal, frankly, I'm not sure that, I think they're metal.
I don't
And
know.
that's what the community asked for.
Okay. Got it. Okay. You can proceed.
And if I can, the first witness I'd like to put on, just as the city sometimes uses their planning co-op students to make presentations to the planning commission, we thought we would give our planning co-op student the opportunity to briefly present on the exhibit that he prepared that is a part of our application. So the first witness I would call is Jacob Biscayne, who is sitting here with me. Mr. Biscayne, can you please state your name?
Jacob Biskin.
And are you a planning co-op student at DAP at the University of Cincinnati?
Yes, I am.
And can you describe what work, your experience with Manley Burke briefly?
Yes, I have served 2 semester terms full-time as their planning co-op, and I remain their part-time employee.
And have you visited the site that is the subject of this hearing?
Yes, I have.
How many times?
4 total.
And that's included the area around the site?
Yes, it is.
And can you please look at Exhibit 2 that's contained within the application that was filed?
Yes, I can.
And did you prepare that document?
Yes, I did.
And is that the same as Figure 4 in the staff report?
Yes, it is.
And can you describe what the exhibit demonstrates?
Yes, I can. I use the Cages Online Mapping web application to obtain the zoning designation layers as well as the property boundaries. I also used additional research to find other vehicle and equipment sales and rental uses within the area, as well as the acreage provided.
And can you describe what you determined to be other vehicle and equipment sales and leasing sites? How many are there in the area?
Yes, there are 6 vehicle and equipment sales and rental uses total in the area, and there are 4 that are above 2 acres.
And where did you obtain the acreage information from?
I used the Hamilton County Auditor website.
And I have no other questions of this witness.
Of those 6, they're all in the same CCA zoning district?
No, they are not.
Okay. So some are in the MG and some are in the CCA.
Correct.
Are they all on either Spring Grove or Mitchell?
Yes.
And can you describe, to be clear, which ones are in which zoning district?
Yes. So Woody Sander Ford, as well as the Kia Service Center and the Hertz Car Rental are all in the CCA Commercial Community Audio or Automotive District. And then the Jeff Weiler Superior Hyundai and Superior Kia, as well as Honda, they're all in the Manufacturing General District.
Any other questions for Mr. Biscayne?
No, thank you.
Then I would move to Mr. Totten. Charlie,
Good morning.
can you state your name, please,
Charles Totten.
and your position?
I am the Vice President of Acquisitions for Altera Property Group.
Can you describe what Altera Property Group's role is with regard to the property at 4838 Spring Grove Avenue?
Sure, we are the owner, landlord, and management company of the property since 2020.
And what is Altera's desire with regard to the property in today's hearing?
Sure. We had a tenant move out of the property, and we reached out to United Rentals, who we have a close relationship with, on a national scale, to see if they might be interested in leasing the property from us. Go ahead. Sorry.
What was the use of the tenant that was on the property that moved out?
Sure. It was a company originally called Tri-State Crane. They had operated from the facility, I want to say, for 10 to 15 years. Then they were acquired by Maxim Crane, who operated the facility under the Maxim Crane brand name for, a year and a half, 2 years. And then they ultimately consolidated into their property in Kentucky. So it was a heavy crane rental, sales and leasing operation. So the types of cranes you'd see on, major infrastructure projects, tower cranes, things like that. Yeah.
And before the application seeking zoning relief was filed in this case, did you review that application?
I did.
And as a part of that application, did Altera cause to be prepared a survey that is Exhibit 5 in the application?
The timing of that survey was related to the acquisition of the property in 2020. But correct. That's a recent survey of the property.
And what did that survey determine the size of that property to be?
Exactly 2.5799 acres.
Can you describe what experience Altera has had in working with United Rentals previously?
Sure. So I think we have United Rentals in, I want to say, 6 or 7 properties on a national level. We have a good partnership with them. They're extremely good tenants, very good corporate neighbors, and being that they are, a Fortune 500 company and the largest equipment rental outfit in North America, with, I believe, 1,500 locations now. We're very happy to work with them and have that relationship. And sometimes when our properties do go vacant, they're one of our first calls.
What's your understanding as to what United Rentals intends to do on the site?
Sure. So this would be their branch, which is called Reliable On-Site Services. They lease and maintain portable sanitation equipment, primarily to contractors, but you'll also see golfing events or weddings, that equipment that you've probably never looked at before, and you'll look at it the next time, you'll see their name on the side. And they're going to also include some fencing product, which will be available from this property, and service the 50 to 100 mile radius is my understanding.
And you heard me in the beginning of this hearing indicate an agreement to both the requirement that before sanitation equipment can be returned to the site, that it has to be emptied elsewhere.
Correct. And that's
would be it's like MSD here in Cincinnati, where this can be done.
Correct. And that's consistent with how the other locations where we have Reliable On-Site Services as a tenant, that's consistent with how those operations are existing.
And such a condition would be acceptable to Altera.
Yes, yes.
And similarly, a condition to make the fence along Spring Grove opaque would be acceptable to Altera.
That's acceptable. We are, we're trying to be an institutional landlord in presence, which means, we want to be good corporate neighbors ourselves. We want to be good property owners in the communities that we go into. So we're certainly capable of doing that.
No other questions for Mr. Totten?
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
And Mr. Sturkey, unless you've got other questions, I'll move on to my final witness.
Sure. I don't have any questions, Mr. Totten.
Then I would call as our final witness, Mr. Walsh. Jeff,
Good morning,
can you state your name
Jeff Walsh,
and what is your position?
District Manager with United Rentals.
And in what area of United Rentals is your division?
The reliable on-site services business unit that Charlie just spoke of here momentarily ago.
And can you generally describe the company that is United Rentals?
I think Charlie did a heck of a job. I might have to defer to him, but very accurate. United Rentals is the largest construction equipment provider in North America. Founded in 1997, large growth through acquisition, as well as organic growth. So, over 1,000 locations, just north of 20,000 employees. And our general rental division consists about 70% of our business. The other 30% is comprised of specialty business units, and reliable on-site services is the newest specialty business unit of those that I just mentioned.
And that's the division that would be operating on the Spring Grove site?
That is correct.
And can you describe what their operations would be from that site?
All right, so we'll be a full service operating branch. So that means everything from a storage, maintenance, delivery, sales, service, you name it, under the operation, we'll be doing it out of that branch. Everything related to portable sanitation, temporary fencing. So we'll be running delivery crews out of there, as well as service crews with a fleet of vehicles and trucks that are designed to pick up and deliver all equipment related to this product line, as well as all the servicing aspects that this line requires as well.
And the issue of ensuring that rented equipment that has been used for sanitation purposes is emptied before it is returned to the site. How does that fit in with the practices of the company?
Although I can't say there's any real estate requirements that call for that to happen. I can say that's 100% aligned with our business practices. We don't haul units or portable sanitation equipment with waste in them, period. Not all states from a DOT perspective have banned that, but many have. So as a national company who wants to be consistent with our operations, we do not haul any portable sanitation equipment with units in them. We pump them out at the site where they're rented and clean them before they're returned.
And you've heard a discussion about potentially the approval of this dimensional variance, which is being sought, being conditioned on a requirement that the portable sanitation equipment must be emptied before it's returned to the site. Is such a condition agreeable to United Rentals?
Absolutely is.
And you've indicated that you may also be renting portable fences from this site. Is it possible in the future that other uses may take place on the site? Other material may be rented from the site in the future?
Yeah, as the newest business unit that I mentioned previously, we are constantly looking to expand our product portfolio to be more relevant to the customers that are coming to us for solutions and products. So there's a very high likelihood that we'll continue to expand that product portfolio based on that.
And is United Rentals also willing to accept the condition that along Spring Grove, the fence would be made opaque?
Yes.
Can you describe to the hearing examiner what you would anticipate the size of the workforce from this site being?
What we call a cold start operation, where we come into a new market and open up a branch and hire a staff. We typically will start out between 5 to 7 employees with a manager, 1 or 2 folks from on our sales team, and then the rest of our employees would be on the service side, delivering and servicing equipment, as I mentioned earlier. So as we grow and as we continue to have more time in the market, I anticipate getting up to 25 to 30 employees within a 3, 4, 5 year time frame.
And can you describe how United Rentals would typically treat and deal with the equipment as it comes back to the site?
Right. So equipment that comes, what we call off rent, is obviously a daily occurrence, right? With the amount of volume we have customers who rent equipment. When they're done with it, they call it off rent. Or we have standard business practices that call for that equipment to be returned to a rent ready status as soon as possible, right? Because when we have equipment come off rent and it needs attention before it can come rent ready again, we don't generate any revenue on that equipment. So because of that, we measure that. We have key business metrics around that specific thing we're talking about, turning that non-rent ready equipment into rent ready. We shoot for a 24-hour time frame, and we're highly successful in achieving that, way more than not.
I have no other questions for Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Walsh, just a couple of follow-ups there. So I think that the 2 conditions that have been negotiated with the community council sort of touch on what some of my biggest concerns were, sort of odor impact and visual impact. And so, I think it's great that they're emptied and there's no waste coming back to the property. But is there any residual odor impact as a result of just having a lot of these portable sanitation porta johns, having all of these on the property at the same time?
Yeah, there's a the volume of the waste that's pumped out before it's returned is the crux of the odor, right? So that is handled and it's put in the hermetically sealed truck before it leaves the customer site. The unit then comes back, and the word residual is spot on. You never get all of it, but from a odor standpoint and a vicinity standpoint, you have to be pretty darn close to the actual units to smell it whenever you're only talking about that residual waste. It's not something permeate an area beyond the real estate. And I don't say that speculatively. I say that because I have 11 or 12 other locations across the Midwest US. We have 50 locations. We do customer lunches in our yards, right, where there's toilets and everything right around us, ready, non-rent ready. And it's never been an issue to where people are kind of doing this and eating. So it's really minimized by the fact that 99.9% of the waste is actually not brought back to the site, if that helps answer the question.
Sure. And all this storage, will it all be outdoor storage of this equipment?
Correct.
And they're never, are they ever stacked or stored above a traditional fence line?
No, we don't do any multi-level storage of portable units. That would all be ground level.
Okay, so with the slats and the opacity of the fencing, you think that will minimize people walking or driving by, their ability to see the equipment inside?
Yeah, the portable toilet equipment, certainly. We do have the luxury restroom and shower trailers that will also be sitting on a lot of times, but those are, you can't even tell that they're sanitation equipment. They're just white exterior trailers on the outside. Aside from that, I don't believe any of the other standard visualized portable sanitation equipment will be seen based on the opacity of the fence.
Okay. I think that's all that I have. Anything, Mr. Burke, based on my questions?
I have nothing further at this point.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mr. Burke. All right, I think we will go now. Let's go to the public, Mr. Robbins and Mr. Carrico. Whoever would like to start, let's start with Mr. Robbins. How about that? Or Mr. Carrico, you go ahead. You just need to take you off. You need to go off mute.
Yeah, one of the reasons I need to go is because my wife has a doctor's appointment coming up and I need to get out of here fairly soon. Okay. One of the things that we're concerned about, okay, we have 4, you may not have noticed that from the co-op's little example that he put out there, but we have 4 restaurants within a block of that place. Okay, these are open and running and have established businesses. That residual odor that we're talking about is more than just a little bit of a concern. Okay, granted, regardless of what the zoning says, these are established businesses that have a lot on the line. They have a lot of skin in the game here. We have to look out for them, so we have to be unusually vigilant here. And it's one thing if you're walking down the street and you, ooh, what's that smell? If you're out sitting there trying to enjoy a nice lunch or dinner at a restaurant, and hey, it's an entirely different thing. And we all know that. We all know it. So we have to be unusually vigilant. And I have a question then for Mr. Walsh based upon his testimony here. Is that okay?
Sure.
Out of all the porta potty rentals you've got out there in the various states and around here, how many have restaurants right next door? I'm not talking about a closed restaurant that's gone. I'm talking about one that's open and established, has outdoor seating, etc. How many of those do you have?
Within my current sites, I can't think of any, Mr. Carrico, where we have restaurants directly adjacent to one of our sites.
Right. So you can see why we are unusually vigilant on this. Whatever comes back has to be cleaned PDQ. And we have to hold you to that because we have other companies here that have put a good bit of money in and time and effort, and they've been good neighbors, not just, you know, your auto places and whatever. We're talking about restaurants. Okay. So that's my concern here. And I just want to make sure everybody actually knows that going in, not later on. Thank you.
If I can address that, because I really do appreciate that concern, and I agree with it, right? We wouldn't look to move into a place where we're going to disrupt business practices or revenue or the success of another business. I am very, very confident based on not only our business practices, but also the way that I've been around this industry for 5 years, knowing that even with that adjacency in mind, that there will not be that odor that you're talking about that's permeating over to diners, whether inside or outside, that affects. And Jared, I'd like to have you over to our first lunch if we're able to make this work out. And I'll let you know, all you'll smell is the barbecue and not the waste that's nearby. And we really do take that seriously, and I appreciate that concern, and we'll do everything to go above and beyond to ever allow that to be a concern that you need to revisit.
Okay, I understand that. One other thing too that was brought up by the zoning examiner here about the opaque fencing will hide all these. You have 2 giant gates. I mean, great big wide gates, so you can bring semis and anything, and then sideways through it. You know, once they're open, and they will be during business hours. I mean, come on, you're not going to keep your gates closed when people going in and out. From over at Taft's, you can see that whole freaking thing. And Taft's is probably the premier restaurant of the bunch, you know. So it is a bit of a concern. And I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, but, you know, Yeah, it will be while you're sitting there trying to enjoy it. What am I looking at here? Doesn't do a lot for the ambience, but I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. Okay.
We can certainly consider it when we think about where in the yard that we place equipment and based on the opening of that gate.
That would help.
Whatever we can do to minimize the visual aspect of that, we'll commit to doing that.
Good. That would help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins, did you want to add anything from the community council or neighborhood perspective?
Yes, thanks for adding me on here. Jerry did a pretty good job of expressing our neighborhood's concern with regards to odors. I would say that we are definitely looking for another good neighbor. Sounds like there's a reputation coming with you guys that we can count on that. As Jerry said, we're also concerned about representing the interest of our area businesses. Here, there's no residents nearby, but our area businesses are there too. So we want to try to make sure that we're keeping them informed, but also representing their interest. I was going to ask a question regarding jobs. When you start off, you mentioned half a dozen jobs or so, but eventually you'll have more. What is the process by which you reach out to find jobs? And would you be open to doing some soliciting around the neighborhood?
Yeah, our talent recruitment process is multi-pronged, as many are all aware on this call. Talent attraction, talent recruitment, and talent retainment is a real business issue, and we're certainly not immune to it. When we think about and we tackle the process of bringing on a team, whether that's when we open a cold start or replacing a driver 3 years after we're open, we reach out and have multiple pieces of not only online advertising, but we're also looking at trade schools for appropriate positions if they're tech or driver related. We do recruiting on LinkedIn. We do have an in-house recruiting department. We also utilize ADP as an external business partner to help us with our recruiting efforts. And what we found is the more localized the effort is, i.e. the thing that you just recommended around boots on the ground and doing searches nearby, those typically yield the best results from a retainment standpoint. And then from there, referrals is really the big ones. Once we bring in a core group of employees, our second biggest success rate would be around those employees then referring other friends and neighbors to come work for United Rentals, which is a top workplace in the country.
Let me see, I wanted to also say that with you guys moving in like other businesses here, we not only want an opportunity to meet you and give you a neighborhood welcome, but we'd also like to facilitate your getting to know your neighbors out there. There's no residents generally around you, but you've got some good business neighbors there. We value having you connected in that way because it makes for a better neighborhood. Lastly, I wanted to say thanks for to David for giving us a little extension on the hearing process here today so that we could bring this zoning request before our community council. Council has other zoning issues that happen throughout the neighborhood, and we really need to have them on board with it, so it's not just a couple people making decisions and then they hear about it later. So we had a robust conversation at our last meeting, and thanks to Tim for joining us there. I think
Mr. Robbins, if I could ask about that meeting, did any of the surrounding business owners provide input or participate in those discussions?
Maybe Jerry could comment on that.
Yes, I had spoken, excuse me, with three of the four restaurants. They were all concerned about any kind of residual odors more than anything. Taft's especially, because if you look at your little diagram there, There's a railroad, but that's a giant overpass going over there, and straight across that underneath that overpass, or that railroad overpass, is where Taps is with all their outdoor seating and everything. So they're concerned about visual effects, and they're certainly concerned about any little whiff of odor coming over there because they got outdoor seating, especially in the summer. I mean, you're not going to have it in the winter, but in the summer, that's when the smell's going to be worse to begin with. So Katie Klug was very concerned about that, and I had to basically explain to her that that first of all, it's all going to be emptied out somewhere else, but they will jump on the any sanitizing and not leave stuff overnight, not leave it over the weekend, but be Johnny on the spot with the Johns. And get them cleaned up so that we don't have that stuff floating across to them, because that would certainly have an impact on them. And I'm sure, Jeff, you understand. So yes, I did talk, especially with these three, as far as Woody Sander and those, well, they're way off in the distance actually, and wrong direction for the wind. But yeah, I didn't talk so much to them because they were not as concerned about it because, well, nobody's eating there unless they just chose to do so.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Lastly,
Robbins?
I'd just add that in addition to our agreement about the two conditions, the last paragraph in our support letter was just to convey the sentiment from the council meeting that we still have concerns and we would want to have a good working relationship with the business neighbor to make sure that nothing negative should come up down the road.
Okay.
Absolutely. We would prefer that. We always do prefer that. And we pride ourselves on being a good corporate neighbor, good corporate citizen. All these restaurants that we're mentioning, you can guarantee them all that they will have new patrons by way of United Rentals and our staff as we move in, and we won't be worried that there's a portable toilet company nearby. We'll rest assured that we won't be able to get any odor of it while we're eating there. So we look forward to meeting all those neighbors as well.
Very good. Well, we'll meet up with you at Taft sometimes and we'll buy the first beer.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, I wanted to give our zoning administrator an opportunity real quickly here to jump in. Emily, Trey, who authored this staff report, is always really good about determining where the prevailing winds are coming from. Is there any chance you're aware of that?
I do not see any analysis of that in Trey's report. I don't have any analysis on the wind flow.
Okay. Anything you want to add?
I mean, Trey's staff report really encapsulates our opinion on the project. We are recommending approval. Our finding is that strict application of the code would result in practical difficulties of the use of the site for vehicle, equipment, and sales rental, and that vehicle and equipment sales and rental is a substantial property right that is enjoyed by other property owners in the vicinity. So it does meet the standards for variances. And we would just ask, as I mentioned before, that if you do include that 6-foot screen fence condition, that is clearly articulated, that it be the screen fence in the condition of approval. So there's no conflict with the zoning code requirements.
With 100% opacity.
Yes.
Okay.
I should add that we do have wind issues with our neighborhood being located in the Mill Creek Valley here. I've been in the neighborhood for almost 50 years, and so is Jerry. And depending upon when the wind blows, we get at times some pretty foul odors coming from industry up the creek. So hopefully none of that will come over from this operation, but we know what foul odors look like for sure. So maybe that's just a heads up for our new business neighbors to watch out for that.
Yeah.
Noted.
If it serves me correctly, in this neighborhood, I thought it was coming from the west or the northwest. So that would be good for taps. But okay, Mr. Burke, anything in closing or in rebuttal that you would like to touch on before we adjourn here today?
Only very briefly. I think you've heard that United Rentals is a Fortune 500 company. They have their own reputation on the line. And you've heard the testimony under oath about how they've operated their other similar sites and the lack of any impact from residual odors in the immediate vicinity of their sites. And I would point out that even if this dimensional variance were not granted, they could still do the same use on the site, only on 2 acres of the site without the conditions that they've agreed to. So I certainly hope that as the zoning hearing examiner, you will find it appropriate to accept the staff report and approve the dimensional variance that has been applied for. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Burke. Okay, first off, I also would like to just commend the community council and the owners here, Mr. Walsh, for talking about this and negotiating these conditions in good faith. That is not something that always happens for these hearings. Certainly doesn't end with a exchange of beers. So thanks to you guys for having that conversation and for digging into this a little bit more. I've had a chance to review the application materials. I'm familiar with the area. Based on that, the staff report and the testimony that I've heard here today, I am going to approve the application. I am going to impose the conditions and restrictions that were negotiated by the parties. I need to formalize that decision in a written opinion, which usually takes about a couple weeks. As soon as that is finished, I put it into a PDF and I email it to everybody who is in the hearing here today. So you all will have a copy of that decision really just moments after it's complete. As soon as you have that, Mr. Burke, you, as you know, you can work with the zoning department to approve the permitting. Any questions about any of that?
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Well, if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to myself or to the zoning department. If you'd like a status update on the decision, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to let you guys know where I'm at with that, but should be in your inboxes in a couple weeks. Okay, great.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
everyone.
Appreciate it.
Good luck with the project. Hope
Thanks.
you all have a wonderful